being stuck in a server room all day was not the dream for me anymore. I wanted to be able to get out and talk to people more, and I wanted to be able to share what I was doing. It's funny, me and my brother are the exact opposites. My brother switched and he loves having this job where he's in coding by himself all the time. That's what he wants to do. I wanted to be out more. And so I started to make the switch and I wanted to see what I could do. So I went into teaching thinking that I was going to be teaching upper grades. And that's when my story changed again. I started working in the upper grades and realized, yeah, that's not the fit for me. I want to be with younger kids. So I switched and I loved teaching elementary, but always had this kind of in the back burner that I wanted to be able to do computer stuff. And then when my district started to get really interested in having more computer science in the elementary school, I jumped on board and I was like, here, let me help. I can do anything. Like I want to mesh my two worlds together so that I could help younger students learn how to use computers. So talking about computer science, there are two main things to remember when we're talking about computer science, especially with the elementary grades, grade 6, grade 5 down from there. The number one thing that I have seen that is huge for having computer science in elementary school is helping them learn computational thinking. There was a great slide that is on the CodeHS website that talks about computational thinking that I have linked in the slides right here. There are a few skills that you gain in computer science. And I saw how much they were useful to me when I started teaching because I had computer knowledge. I didn't necessarily have teaching knowledge. And I had to go through the pedagogy and break it down. And I used the computer science skills that I had gained through the years to be able to do this. When you have computational thinking, you can decompose something big into something smaller and go chunk by chunk. And so I noticed that as I was teaching that I was using computational thinking, and it's a skill that we need to have as human beings, that we can take something big and break it down and see, like with teaching, how am I going to teach English? And then that gets broken down even more. How am I going to teach math? That gets broken down. And it's a skill that we use everywhere. And I love seeing it being practiced while I'm teaching the students how to code using Scratch or Scratch Junior, because they have questions and they say, I don't know how to do this. And I'm not one to just jump in and say, okay, well, you need to move this block over here and do this and do that and get it to work. And there you go. Now it's working for you. I love taking the time to break it down and have the student work with me and see what steps they need to take. That is the number one thing for me personally for teaching computer science in elementary school. And another thing that is a bonus is that students love to learn how to code. Coding is like a superpower. And once they see that they can, animate a story to happen in Scratch Junior, I see kindergartners' faces that light up because they're so excited with the superpower that they have. So these are the two main things that they're the why for why we should be doing computer science in elementary. Before I move on, I'm just going to see, does anyone have any questions? If you want, you can put them in the chat or the Q&A.
So I don't see any questions just yet. Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's move on. So first things first, you need to get yourself ready for computer science. I have been teaching for 4 years now, and my district has been pushing really hard to have computer science the last 2 years. Even with that experience and me knowing pretty well how to code and stuff, I still see that I need to get ready when I teach a computer science lesson. So what I have found that is effective for you when you're trying to teach computer science, if you haven't done it before, is first, you need to pick a curriculum that you're going to be using. We at Box Elder love working with CodeHS, and coming to the conference, correct me if I'm wrong, we have a pro account now, don't we, for those that attended the conference?
Yes, they'll be getting a pro account until the end of the school year.
Okay, so yeah, this is an awesome way to be able to get you started with computer science. So I'm going to be talking specifically about how to use CodeHS to teach students how to code with interfaces. And the two ones that we are going to be using is Scratch, which for our district, we do Scratch for grades 3 through 5. And then Scratch Junior is for kindergarten through 2nd grade, which is a little simpler. It's simplified down from Scratch so that those that are younger don't need to be reading the complex words that are in the box or the blocks for Scratch. When you're doing this, the number one thing before I say dive into CodeHS is take more than a second, like I said in the slides, take about an hour. Go to YouTube, Google how to code with Scratch or how to code with Scratch Junior, and just get used to what the interface looks like, because this is what the students are going to be seeing when they're doing a lesson. And it helps you if you've taken a little bit of time to figure out how it works. There's a lot of YouTube videos. There are people that have websites that are dedicated with tutorials of how to do CodeHS. Or sorry, not CodeHS, to do Scratch and Scratch Junior. And then, like it says, go to CodeHS and find one of the lessons that's 30 to 45 minutes that you can teach your students. Look over the materials, see what's in the lesson, what you'll be teaching, what the students are going to need to be doing. Spend about 15 minutes doing the activity at the end of the lesson so that you can see what the students are going to need to do. The more preparation that you do beforehand, the easier it's going to be for you. It's like teaching anything. If you go into something and you're well prepared, then you're going to be able to teach it better and you have the confidence. So you're not scrambling when something happens and thinking, oh no, what do? I hadn't prepared for this. All right, so here are things that can get in the way. These are some things that I've seen as I've been helping teachers in our district. And as I've talked to people outside of the district, these are common questions I see that come up. First one is thinking, if I haven't mastered this, how can I teach my students this? You can. That's as simple as it is. I say, give it a try. What is really the worst thing that can happen? Being honest as a teacher, I have had lessons that have totally flopped with students. They still showed up the next day. They still want to learn. I love whenever I can take a time to say I made a mistake, which is hard. It's really hard to do. But if you can say I made a mistake, it helps them to realize it's okay to make a mistake. The number one thing that I see with computer science is that you have to have computational thinking. And if you don't make mistakes, you're really not learning how to think computationally. The next thing is saying, well, my principal is not going to like me doing some computer science play thing. The kids are just playing on computers. I've heard a lot of trepidation about what principals will say. If you want, have them reach out to me. I can show them how much it helps students. I talk about one student that I had last year that was struggling with math. He could not get math to click for him. And I was preparing lessons and I found a lesson that I was going to teach my class, but kind of specifically teach him, that was coding to do a math quiz game with Scratch Junior. He did that and I saw his face light up. And he saw that it doesn't always have to be on pencil and paper that he does math. And from then on, he loved coding, but also it kind of opened his mind that math isn't so bad. So if your principal's having a struggle thinking, well, we can't fit this in, or if you have a team lead that's thinking, we can't fit this in, it helps students. Let's do it. And moving on, I've heard a lot of people say, well, I don't have the devices. I don't have computers. I don't have Chromebooks. I don't have iPads. I don't have something. If you have one device, it can start with that. I'm going to go back to when I was a kid. I remember in 4th grade, I was in Mrs. Earle's 4th grade class, and she called me and one other student to the back of the room. And she had said that, I can't remember what we were working on, some packet that we were working on, and we had both gotten done early. And she took us over to the one computer that was in the classroom. And she said, there's some new thing called PowerPoint. And I have no idea what PowerPoint is. And she told us that the principal at that time wanted them to start using this new program called PowerPoint. And she said that she had noticed that him and I showed that we could use the computer well when we had done the few little things on the computer. And so she gave us a manual that took us through projects in PowerPoint, and we made PowerPoints. And then we went back and taught her how to use PowerPoint. And I have always remembered that ever since fourth grade, because Mrs. Earl put herself out on the line with two of her students and said, I don't know computers. She was elderly at the time. And so she made it known a lot that she did not know computers. And we were able to learn that and then teach her. And that gave me excitement for the rest of my life with computers, where I was like, I taught my teacher how to do something and I loved it. So if you don't have devices, find one device, start with a group. When we were first starting last year, I had a group of 6 or 7 students that during small group times, we brought them back and I taught them. And then we spread it out. And luckily, our district has funding. So at this point, we have one-to-one devices for the students. So every student in the district has a Chromebook. So it makes it easy for coding. I will say it is difficult if you don't have many devices, but if you have the devices, it makes it a lot easier. Reach out to district leaders, do what you need to do so that you can get devices. The last thing is just saying, I'm scared. I understand what it's like to be scared. I've been terrified as a teacher. I know what it's like to feel the fear teaching English or teaching math. Computer science came easy to me, but I know what it's like to have the fear. And that's where my background of being in action sports, of riding dirt bikes and jumping mountain bikes and snowboarding comes into mind, where you see these huge jumps that you're going to go over and you think, I am terrified, I can't do this. And you kind of just have to tell yourself, I've prepared, I planned the lesson, I know what I need to do, I'm gonna go for it. I think things will be okay. And that's where I kind of honed in on those, where I was about to jump a jump on a mountain bike and the whole time I'm riding up, I'm terrified of it, but I'm thinking, you know what, I can do this, I know I can do this, and I do it. And most of the time I land, and if it goes wrong, I mean, I'm still here. Things didn't go terribly wrong. It's okay. Don't worry about being scared. It helps you to improve when you're scared. So moving forward, I'm going to pause right here. Do you have any questions about, or questions or concerns about what you need to do before you start teaching?
We have a couple. Gabby had a good comment that she sent in. It says, if they can learn this, we can learn this along with them. We need to be one step ahead of students, or until students are way beyond us. And then they're fine on their own and at their own pace. That is awesome. I did have one question from Alma. It says, if your district is not currently providing CodeHS for elementary, what do you suggest?
I would talk with them. I mean, find out who is in charge of things in your district. If it's an ed tech specialist, whoever it is that is going to be in charge, I would get with them and just talk about this conference and what you've learned from this conference and show them what they have. I know Robin or Danielle, you could probably help them out finding contacts at CodeHS to reach out to. But it's just getting that communication between the district and CodeHS to work things out. I saw some people talking about code.org. That is an option. There are multiple platforms that you can find curriculum to teach coding in elementary settings.
Yeah, and we'll definitely post the link for you to learn more about bringing elementary to your district.
All right, so I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna move a little quickly. When you get ready for your lesson, realize it won't go perfectly. That's just the way it is. You're gonna make mistakes. It's not fun when you make mistakes, but you make mistakes when you get any new curriculum. It's how it goes. So I think as teachers, we've gotten to that point where we've realized when you do something for the first time, it's going to be hard. It gets much easier each time you do it. Some students are not going to like it. It's true. Some kids don't like it. They're going to shut down. But that's where I like to find a way that I can creatively bring a computational thinking piece to them and help them break it down and help them see that they can get through something big that they don't understand. It's what we do in math. It's what we do in English. Help them. You're going to need to scaffold it and maybe give them a little help. The one piece of advice that I will say is don't just give them the answer. Play that fine balance line of, tightrope walk so that they're pushed, but not pushed too hard. And you know your students, you know what that means for each one of them. Some students are going to get it and they are going to love it. And they are your best friend at that point. They're going to be the ones that are going to start teaching the lesson to the other kids. Students listen to teachers, but they listen to other students even more. That's what I've seen at least. And the last thing, don't quit. I promise it's going to be worth it. Right now I'm coaching my 5-year-old son's soccer team, and he is not enjoying soccer right now. And I tell him, don't quit. That's why right there I say, okay, Dad, because that's what he always says to me. I say, keep going. You're going to enjoy it. Soccer is going to be good for you. And he says, okay, Dad. This is the okay moment. Don't quit. You're going to do it and it's going to be hard, but don't quit. You can do it. Okay, student struggles. If a student is struggling in any part of the learning process, you need to slow down. Make sure that they get the fundamental parts of coding down first. Make sure that they understand what's going on. If you're coding in Scratch, make sure that they understand what's going on with each event. When they bring a block down that has a green flag, make sure that they understand that when they click the green flag, whatever is connected to that green flag block is going to be executed. Help them realize that messages need to be the exact same message. You can't have a message with a really close name and it just won't work. Slow down, give them a good foundation, and then it starts going a lot quicker. That's what I've noticed in almost anything that I've learned how to do. Take the time to build a foundation, and then it's going to go much quicker. You need to, like I said earlier, give them scaffolding. Give them some starter code. Just don't give them everything. Help them so that they get a little bit. And then even if they're just adding one block to your starter code, that's helping them build that foundation. And balance the difficulty. Don't make them do something that's going to get them so frustrated that they don't want to do it again. I've noticed that there have been some kids that got pushed a little too far, and it's hard to get them to come back if you've pushed them too far. So balance it. Don't have them rage quitting like they do with their video games. They tell me when they come back over the weekend that they were playing some new video game and they got mad and rage quit and threw their controller. Don't have them do that. All right, pause right there. Any questions about getting started and how to help students?
You see one question in the chat. It says we're in the process of adding the pro to my high school. However, I'm interested in elementary. Because our girls computing club does elementary workshops. Would we have access to elementary curriculum if we are a high school pro account? Good question. Let me get back to you. I'm going to let him continue Java, and then I'm going to get right back to you. All right, cool.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure on that. I just have access to elementary since I am an elementary teacher. Okay, so now tech issues. We're going to have tech issues. It just happens. Have a backup plan. If you're going to dedicate time of your day to teach computer science, and it's going to be something that you're coding with a device, have a backup plan. If it's something that can be done both offline and online, have an offline plan backed up. Realize that occasionally you will have an issue where Chromebooks don't work. I've had that happen where right before we were about to do a lesson in CodeHS to program something in Scratch, the internet went down at our school. And so then I had to go to my backup plan. Take time to have a backup plan. Now, next thing, you need to be flexible because there are going to be tech issues. Don't get flustered by it. If there's a student that's not able to log on, you can always have them move over and work with a partner, or if it's at a point where you can release your other students to start coding something, have them do that while you help them out. Just be flexible with it. And then always use it as a teaching moment. There are going to be times in their life when they use a computer that it is not going to work. That was my whole job for years, was helping people when their computer didn't do what they wanted it to do. Some people that I dealt with were able to handle it and they were friendly with me. Other people, when I came to help them with whatever computer issue they were having, they had a meltdown with me. They need to learn that there will be times that the computer or whatever they're working with that is an electronic device is not going to work. So this is a good teaching moment to help them learn what to do when they're young. So we're going to get started now. The first thing that I want you to do is to log into CodeHS. If you already have an account and you have it set up, you can go in there, log into CodeHS. When you're in CodeHS, you need to find, I put parentheses, the lesson. If you go in there, you can go to all lessons and there's a long list of lessons that you can go to. Pick the lesson. For me, I just always say, go to the very first one. Depending on if you're teaching younger grades, you would go to the Introduction to Scratch Junior, or if you're teaching upper grades, go to the Introduction to Scratch. And look through it. It's going to have videos that you can watch. It has videos that you can show to your class. It has a slideshow that you can open up and just play it as is, or you can modify the slides to make it work for your class. Most lessons are going to be about 45 minutes-ish, and it doesn't always work out that you can teach that whole lesson in the 45 minutes. There are some schools in my district that use a lot of this during their specialties or prep time. So they have a half hour total to be able to get the kids in, get logged in, teach them a lesson, get things cleaned up and move on to the next class. So they take a 45-minute lesson and maybe they'll break it apart and take it in 3 chunks or 2 chunks, you know, something like that. So the nice thing about that is with CodeHS, you can take the slides and break them apart and make it work for your schedule. Before you start teaching the lesson, go through it. I love finding volunteers. I have my 5-year-old son, and then I also have a 7-year-old son. And I will go home and I'll teach a lesson to them because they see that I like it. And so they love it already. And so whenever I go to them, they help me out. And especially my 7-year-old, because he's brutally honest about anything. And so he'll stop me in the middle of my mock lesson and say, Dad, you're doing this really weird, or Dad, I don't understand what you're saying. And so he helps me get those kinks figured out before I start talking. So find someone at home, find someone at school that will be your volunteer student and give a lesson to them. That helps you to be able to figure out what are some of the issues that you're going to be able to encounter while you're teaching. And then last, go to the CodeHS resources page. That has a lot of help for you. I find myself going back there a lot of times because of the vocabulary, where I want to be able to teach vocabulary in a way that students will be able to understand it. And I've realized that CodeHS has done a really good job of being able to explain things in a way that kids will understand. So pause right there. What questions do we have before we move on?
We do have a lot of people who are interested in bringing CodeHS Elementary to their schools. I did put a link into the chat for you to get more information on how you can access CodeHS Elementary and see all the lessons. A couple people said that they have the middle school, high school access already that they use, and that's free to use. You do have access in the sandbox for students to be able to create lessons using Scratch or Scratch Junior. So in the middle school, high school, you don't have access to all the elementary lessons, but if your students are interested in using Scratch or they've used Scratch before, they definitely can get to it in their sandbox on the middle school, high school site. One person did say that they have very limited time at their school, that they have 30 minutes per class, 5 classes every day, 1st through 5th. So they're getting some good tips on maybe how to shorten the lessons. I don't know if you wanted to mention anything for someone who only has 30 minutes per class.
Mm-hmm. If you have limited time, that's where I really think it's nice to give a pre-lesson and see for you about how long it takes to get through that first lesson. And at that point, be kind of paying attention to the clock. That's where I'm liking where I have my son, because, being in 2nd grade, that's right around the age that most of the students are that are being taught this curriculum. And so I can see how he does, and then I could figure out, okay, if I'm going to only have 15 minutes when you take out the time that it takes to get everything set up, I need to see how long it would take him to do something. And then I can say, okay, so it took him about this long. And then, granted, he's had more experience. So I'd say, okay, maybe take it back just a little bit. And I think that would be a good thing. So if you have access to somebody that's in the elementary age, it's nice to pre-teach to them to see how long it is. If not, you can wing it and see how far you go. At that point, though, once you teach, you're going to have to start keeping track of where each class is. Now, one thing that I will say, if you're someone that's teaching all of the grades, where you're saying you have a half hour with 1st grade, half hour with 2nd grade, and so on, I would keep it kind of separated between Scratch Junior and Scratch, at least to begin with, where you're teaching kindergarten 1st and 2nd the same lesson in Scratch Junior, and then teach 3rd, 4th, and 5th the same lesson in Scratch. So that way you're not making 6 different lesson plans. You're just making 2 lesson plans, the younger grade and then the older grade. And as it goes on, it's going to be a learning process if you're just getting started. What we're seeing at this point in our district is that you will start to have to branch out more as you go on. My 2nd graders last year, I was teaching 2nd grade last year. My class especially, they got really good at it because I was using it a lot, and then other classes didn't use it as much. So it will get to the point where you're going to have to differentiate more. But if you can start solid with kindergarten and start solid with 3rd grade, each year that they move up, you can kind of just have them be your pilot group. And the next couple of years are kind of growing pains, and it is what it is. But then from then on, you get established. And so you can expand each year and make it something else. All right. Any other questions?
We do have one. And maybe other teachers can chime in the chat and help out. This teacher has a student who got frustrated doing computer science, won't even get a Chromebook anymore. They sat with him, had students also try to help, but he's just very frustrated and shuts down right away. I don't know if you have any advice you could offer.
I have some thoughts. If anyone else wants to reach out, that's awesome too. Thinking about that, if you go to what they call pair programming, you can have 2 students working together to do something. And so that, I think, could be a situation that could help for him, where when you do pair programming, you have one student that is in charge of the computer. And so anything that needs to be done on the computer, that student is going to do that. And then you have another student that is telling the student what to do on the Chromebook. So if he's just not wanting to touch the Chromebook, you know, if he's had a bad experience and that's what it is, maybe you can flip it a little bit and have him, you know, doing the thinking to figure out what the program needs to do. That's one suggestion of what you could try to see if that would help him get back into it and not get so frustrated next time.
Thank you.
Were there any suggestions from other teachers that you've seen if you've done anything with coding?
Can we use our mics? Can we share?
Yeah.
So it depends on the reason the student is frustrated. What I find is that the students get frustrated the most of the students that are used to everything working for them the first time. And if that's what it is, they need to just understand that nobody programs something where it works the first time. You know, they get really frustrated. I find that my brightest kids, really, for whom everything comes pretty easily, absolutely switch roles with the kids who struggle through everything and are used to it not working, and they try again and they try again and they try again. It's a really important lesson, and I wouldn't take that productive struggle away from them.
I agree with that. It goes back to what I talked about with the computational thinking, because I do see students that haven't learned how to take frustration yet, and they haven't learned what it takes to be able to solve something that is more complicated than they think they can do or they want to do at the time. And if they can learn that lesson in a coding aspect, it's low stakes for them at this point. It is going to help them with their future. So I do see that they do need to struggle, and I also see that there are ways that you can slowly bring them back in so that they don't have explosions, because there have been kids that I've seen as I'm teaching that have an explosion because they get frustrated. And it is a teaching lesson for them at that point.
So can I speak up real quick? I'm the one with that made the comment, but I'm really trying to nail down why he won't do it anymore, but I'm kind of finding, and he finally did state he doesn't know what the blocks are in Scratch. He doesn't know all of them. And so I was trying to find a handout or something that kind of explains them, but I really haven't really found something that he could actually have physically in front of him, a piece of paper. And so now he's just like, he doesn't mind watching the kids. He doesn't mind the kids watching, you know, them create their programs, their projects, but he just will not do it.
There are a lot of those where you can get all the blocks and what they do printed out.
I've looked, and maybe I'm just not looking at the right spot, but I'll keep a hunting.
Yeah, maybe if one of us finds it, we can put it in the chat for you. Awesome.
I know on the Scratch website, I forget their exact website. It's either scratch.mit.edu or something. Anyways, on the Scratch website, they do have resources where you can see the different blocks and what each block does. All right, so we just have a few minutes. We're going to go ahead and start wrapping things up. Remember, students, they enjoy coding for the most part. There are going to be some students that do get frustrated, and we have students that get frustrated, you know, with any curriculum that we teach, whatever it is. But for the most part, I have seen that students love when they have a chance to be able to code. I like CodeHS because it has Scratch and Scratch Junior lessons, but also, and I saw in the comments someone say something about robots. They love anytime they can do something with coding, and the robots gives them something physical that they can see. Just yesterday, I had my students working with some Finch robots, and they were coding and then doing stuff with Finch robots. And looking at the CodeHS curriculum, there are lessons that you can go through to teach Finch robots or B-bots, the Code and Go mice. There are a few different robots that they have lessons for that you could use. So if you don't have one of those robots, there are places that will allow you to rent them out. Some companies, the manufacturer of the robots, will let you rent a robot out for a month or something like that. So you could get a taste. You can write grants to be able to get robots. There are a few different things you can do if you want to have robots to give them something else to do with coding. Once they learn how to do Scratch, they get excited and they want to do more. And moving on to robots is something that could help them out. We've talked about this a few times, but they may not realize it, but you're teaching them how to think through problems. And I saw a student earlier this year that was struggling with spelling, and he came to me and he said, "Oh, we learned about how to figure things out when we were coding." I can't remember the exact words he used, but he was saying, you know, because of coding, I was able to figure out how to spell. That was amazing to see, just that he got those thinking skills without even realizing he was getting those thinking skills during coding. And then the last thing, just remember, have fun with it. It's scary at first. I realize that. Everything that is fun for me has been scary at first. Whether it was learning how to ride a bike, drive a car, play sports, it was scary for me at first. But then I learned how to do it and it became fun. Teaching was terrifying for me my first year, but then I learned how to do it and it became fun to me. I saw a couple chat things. Do we have any questions?
No, but people are being super helpful with giving a bunch of links to resources.
All right. If you do have any questions, CodeHS can help you out. Reach out to your district, find someone that's a techie person in your district, and they'll be able to help you out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We'll hang out for just another minute. Our closing session does start in 2 minutes, so there's no gap this time. So if you head to the lobby and go to the closing session, I also did put into the chat the link to the survey to fill out as well. And don't forget that we will be emailing everyone all of the resources from today's event. Thank you so much, Jacob. I really appreciate it. You gave a lot of great information, and I know that's going to be very helpful to all of our teachers.
Thank you.
Thank you.